And that's why you should always moisturize. What's going on, everybody? This is the Cover Band Confidential podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more while also sucking less. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
So I know the people can't hear it, and you probably can't see it, but I did just come back from the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I was out in the sun, very much so, every day, and I didn't do the best job in application evenness, as it turns out.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you come back streaky.
Yeah. It was a great trip, though.
Cool.
You know, got to spend time with my entire family, brothers, sisters,
Awesome.
In-laws, all the good stuff, nieces and nephews. So yeah, that was great. We got home yesterday, and then I still managed to drive about 4 hours today back and forth from Buc-ee's, because this is our single week where we have no children starting tomorrow.
Nice.
So it's like just date night after date night. We're just going to cram them all in because we haven't been on one forever. But yeah, no kids this week and no gigs for a couple of weeks. So
there you go.
Feeling pretty good. It's
That's
just
good.
about getting this stupid pantry done.
Well, excellent.
Yeah. Let's not talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
How about you?
Good. We're getting real close on the house painting. I think I've talked about that too.
Yes.
Yeah. Very.
Has
very
it
close.
started? There was like a enough gap in the rain?
Yeah. No,
to
they've
get
been at it hard for 2 weeks now. When I got the quote, I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" But looking at what they've really done, like, it's amazing.
Oh,
the
yeah.
main part of the paint is done. They're just finishing up some pieces and getting interrupted a lot by weather. So,
Yep.
But the team's been fantastic, and yeah, they've been really really happy with what they're doing. So that's all good.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we did siding. And of course, after they do the siding, they do the painting.
Yep.
And the amount of work that went into ripping all of the existing siding off of our house, fixing all the woodwork, putting the cover back up,
Yeah.
installing the actual siding, then painting the whole thing. It's just like,
Yeah. Well, this house was built in 1890.
Yep.
So it's there are no square corners. There are no no walls are plumb. It's to people come and work on the house, and they're like they have to do trigonometry to figure out how to do anything. So it's
are the walls more apricot or pomegranate?
yeah.
Sorry, that was an NPR joke.
Yes, they are much more pomegranate.
There you go.
Did I tell you the color names we chose?
Oh yeah, because we had that very interesting conversation about what a rusty trumpet costs in your city.
That's right. Well, I will tell you, a tarnished trumpet colored door is beautiful. So
That's what I hear.
yeah. Yep.
Well, fantastic. When's your next soiree? What do you guys have coming up?
Well, I'll tell you, my July calendar just kind of imploded. And the last time you and I talked, the weekly trivia had come to an end, and we're looking probably again at fall to start that back up again. But their Thursdays in the summer are really hit and miss, and so we're not going to invest in entertainment for that. And I went and talked to a new venue in town, brand new brew pub, about doing karaoke there, and we settled on it. Tuesdays, great, here we go. And
Cool.
then a couple of days later, I got a call from him saying, we had to look at the real numbers, and we just can't start that now. It needs to be later in August to do that. So, fine. Meanwhile, the one gig that I have in July got rescheduled to August 5th, the first Saturday in August.
Yep.
So my July was like wide open. And I real quick got on the horn to all of the venues I know and said, hey, big open month here. Let me know what you need. And one of them, my local Bull City Cider Works shop, the Greensboro one that I've done a lot of stuff at, said,
Yep.
You free tomorrow? Yeah, I'm free tomorrow. What do you want to do? She said, I don't know. Something. Karaoke, maybe? And so I reached out to all my karaoke people. The core, the sort of nut of my people who come to that were free and available and ready to go. And so I stood it up there. And I tried something new marketing it. I use MailChimp. And I have a mailing list that is, I can't remember the exact number, but it's over 300. And I hype it at every show, and it's been really useful for me. All along the way, I've carefully tagged people who joined it to the kind of show they joined at, what city they were in when they joined at, maybe what venue they were in when they joined it. And so I was able to do a segmented mailing to just the people who I know have done karaoke with me in the past. And it was, of those 300 something, it was like 80. And I sent it out. The open rate on it was like 77%, which is insane. Yeah. And I wrote it like very, you were invited to a very special pop-up at karaoke, and it was very much about like, listen, I'm hitting the select group here because I want you to know about this thing. And then sure enough, like 40, I would have to say 2/3 of the room was full, and it was full with my people. So, wow. In terms of targeted marketing, I think it was a really big success.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
a lot of us don't necessarily get that granular into, the data that we're collecting.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were able to get that detail in to nail just the right people, that's awesome.
I knew there would come a time when it was useful, and it's annoyed me every time I've done it because I gotta go back. But I'm really glad I've been that diligent all along. So yeah, works out.
For sure. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what else is fantastic?
What's that?
Reviews.
They are.
And, we've had a couple roll in, and, we could always use more. So if you haven't done it already, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. This one came in at the end of June from a guy named Gary Garwig on his username. It says, great tips and commiseration. Hello, it's Gary from Saloon Number 12 in Southern California. I listen to this podcast weekly to get some ideas for new things to try and to hear the victories and defeats of these two working musicians. Very relatable and entertaining. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
And we got one coming up, and then all the ones that are absolutely going to pour in.
Yep.
After we air this episode.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So please do so.
Yeah, go do the thing.
Get it ready. Is that all the housekeeping stuff?
Yeah.
I feel like the video convo of you and Creston should end up somewhere at some point.
Yes.
So be on the lookout for that on the YouTube channel sometime.
Yeah.
This week.
It's a fun talk.
And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
Housekeeping done. So let's talk about the meat of the conversation. This was another topic that is compliments of our Patreon community, because we have the space that we've created for people to not just talk about all the good stuff, but hey, this is a thing that didn't work.
Right.
And the second they shared the story, there was an absolute pile on, because I feel like everybody had kind of experienced this kind of thing before.
Yeah.
And so I won't get into the details specifically just yet, but we wanted to kind of title this the 5 types of musicians you want to avoid.
Or want to avoid being.
That's right.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's just the particular unsavory behaviors that some musicians do, and something to be aware of and look out for as you are navigating your career in this very, very interesting industry.
Yeah. And as we go through these, to think, is this an impression I'm leaving with anyone else? If any of these ring a bell for you about yourself, it's time for a little self reflection.
Yeah. So this is a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
We are not here to pass judgment per se, but I still feel like these concepts are universal and translate into your specific scene quite cleanly, I would say.
In other words, we're not judging, but the top line of our notes, our shared notes, says bad musicians. So don't be bad musicians this way.
Yes. So the first one we're going to cover is the one that inspired the conversation in the first place. And Dan and I have, these are all like the title names. So the first one is The Talent. And of course, the talent is in air quotes. Yeah. The concept of this kind of musician is someone who believes that they don't need to put the effort in order to pull the gig off. The one that comes to mind is the lead guitar player.
I don't know why we have a bad rap for this, but we do. Yeah.
But listen, if you get hired for the lead guitar position in a band and you've learned all of your pentatonic shapes and you figure like, well, this song's in B, I got it from here.
Yep.
That's what the talent is. And let's
wait. This is in B major?
Ooh.
I know the minor pentatonic shapes. Can I just use those?
Yeah, but if you have a capo.
Well, fair. Yeah.
So, but I have absolutely been in this situation. And while, yes, guitar players are typically the biggest offenders, I had to fire a drummer for this kind of thing, where he just literally did kind of rough charting of song structure, but didn't take into account signature patterns, big fills. He didn't do the snare roll in the middle of Don't You Forget About Me.
Huh.
And that's when we knew we were in trouble.
Why would you give up that opportunity to show off? It's a great moment.
Well, because you didn't know it was there.
Right.
Because you didn't bother to work on it. So
I did let go of a bassist one time who in rehearsal seemed like he had it, and then at the show, and there was no inebriation might be an excuse. That might be coming up later in our set. But that was not the case here. He just didn't know any of the music all of a sudden. And the I'm going to get by on my sheer chops, my sheer, chutzpah, and not do the work. That's the talent.
Now, let's not get too wrapped around the axle here, because there are definitely types of gigs where that kind of proficiency is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're a jazz person, there's a lot more improvisational components to the work that you do. I don't want them looking at us going, man, these guys are idiots. But the fact of the matter is that for the majority of the work that we do, that kind of improvisational approach isn't necessarily the right thing and can make the end product much less digestible.
Yeah. I've done some work in the the jam band scene, where you got to be able to see the big shape of the song, where the leads are moving around, but you're going to get 6 times over the form to mess around with it. So
yeah,
you're not going to have something prepared for that. Not every note's gonna be written out about that. Very few will be. It's not about that. It's about the moment of sort of improvisational magic that happens right in that moment, and it's a very different kind of prep. But if you show up to play Everybody Wants to Rule the World and you don't have a grip on the oddities of the structure of that tune, we're not gonna have a good time.
Yeah, and this particular type of musician happened to sandbag one of our patrons' gigs this past week.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what sparked the whole conversation.
Concept,
but Dan and I have had a really good time coming up with the other kinds of musicians who you also need to avoid. The next one is what I have dubbed the Flake.
Yep.
So these are people who they're able to say yes to things, but on not on a very concrete level. And so the biggest issue that most of these people have is communication. And that's kind of the topic that came up over and over again.
Yeah.
Is, are you coming? Are you not coming? Those kinds of things. And granted, communication is the hardest thing. It's literally the hardest thing that we do as human beings, is do so effectively. So, but there is I feel a certain bare minimum that is necessary to conduct yourself in this business. And there are lots and lots of folks who are not very good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it takes a lot of forms. Hey, can you sub on Friday?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And then silence.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as the sub, confirm with me, right? So give me, I need to know where to show up, right? On the flip side of that, working out the details of a thing. Can you come play with us, whatever, next week? And then 3 days goes by, and I've moved on. I'm on to my next call. But then they return. Yep. They come back then. I saw in the news recently, actually just yesterday, that so the case was there was a contract that involved delivering feed to a farmer, and the feed company texted him the details of the contract, and he replied with a thumbs up emoji. And then they delivered it, and he said, "Well, I never signed that contract. It's off." And in fact, when it went to court, the judge said, no, that thumbs up implied agreement, and it's totally valid for them to have expected you to pay for what they were delivering you. Just to your point that communication, it's not getting any better. Technology is not helping us. So a thumbs up emoji usually, I don't know, maybe that communicates confirmation. Maybe it's just I got that.
Yeah. Yes. I saw that this happened.
Yeah. I recognize that you've texted me.
Yeah. And I'm willing to be open here. This is the one that feels like the one that I might be the most guilty of, because of all the other myriad stuff going on. I do get inquiries for dates, and it takes a lot of finessing to confirm those dates. And normally I've got to check my schedule and what other things may be going on related to other stuff. And so if you reach out to me and you say, hey, can you do this date X, Y, and Z, and you don't get an immediate yes, I apologize. Because
that's part of the point of putting this list together is it is a moment for some self-reflection. When early days of my current project, where it's the first time I have put my stick in the ground and said, I am the band leader. I'm not collaborating on band leading. I want everyone's input, but I'm driving the bus. A couple of times, things got screwed up about a rehearsal or something. Somebody wasn't coming, but kind of didn't, or somebody else said they were waiting on somebody to say they could come, and then when they did, somebody else didn't get that as confirmation. And so I really had to bring myself up to a new level of great, we've heard from everyone. Here's what to expect. And that kind of clarity really moved the needle forward for us. Moved the ball forward. I just mixed two metaphors. Bad communication, right?
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's unescapable. But, it really takes something to get where you are thinking out ahead of how people are going to hear what you're saying, and you're proactively heading off misunderstandings.
Yeah. So you want to take the next one?
Sure. The next one is just a dear friend of all of ours, life of the party, in fact, and that is the party animal.
So this person can take on many forms.
Yes.
They all kind of end the same way, though, right?
Yeah. It's
party,
always sloppy.
Yeah. And the energy can also be overwhelmingly negative or positive, because you do have the guys that you like, they're subbing in. This is the only night you guys are going to play together. And they want to make sure that it's like a fun night for everybody.
Yep.
And so they're bringing that kind of like excitement, and it's positive, but then, they may overindulge and tank their big moment.
Their fine motor skills, among other things.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't want to necessarily diminish substance abuse, but it does appear to be a prevalent issue in our community. So,
well, we always play in these bars and clubs and things, like at least drinking, completely normal.
Yeah.
But there is also this, we say that name, the party animal. I played with a guy who was maybe the most charismatic human I've ever met in my life and worked with. And he's just, everybody wants to be his best friend. When you got his attention, it's like you're standing in the sunlight. And it was great to have him be part of the band, because it was really attractive. Like, people came back to see him, like have that experience. But at some point that became a substitute for what the band was really there for. It became the him show. And it had nothing to do with consuming alcohol or anything else. It was just like, he was a particular kind of party that, while great, was overwhelming and it eclipsed a lot of other things we were trying to accomplish.
So yeah, I mean, it doesn't always have to be, the kind of played out story, but
right.
Yeah,
although
typically
the played out story certainly happens plenty as well.
Well, yeah, it's played out because it happens
right.
too much.
That's right.
And we've all been in a situation where somebody showed up, or the one that I always dealt with was somebody who showed up loaded.
Ugh.
It was the two L's, the two you don't want. They were late and they were loaded.
Yeah.
So they showed up, honestly, like as Downbeat was supposed to be happening, they walked in.
Ooh.
And they were already just, so that's not great.
Yeah. As a band leader, I haven't dealt with that exactly, but I have had cases where a player was notably loose during the show, and in one case said to me afterward, like, boy, I think I drank too much. I think it really, I don't know. I don't want to, and I said to that person, look, you and I noticed that. I'm clear you noticed it, and I for sure did too. I don't think the audience did, but if it's a matter of you and your professionalism, then it's a thing to notice. It's a thing to file away. And I'm not upset. The gig was fine. We got paid just fine. Nobody mentioned anything about it. So, if getting away with it is a thing, then you got away with it. But yeah, I appreciate you saying that and acknowledging it. And, if that informs your behavior in the future, then that's great.
Well, I also don't know if the self-aware party animal is the one that most people are dealing with.
That's true. That's true. Usually
that's actually kind of the opposite is kind of the point.
Right.
That they don't need to know anything about anything in particular.
Yeah. They're too out of it to have any awareness of anything, self or otherwise.
Yeah. I don't know. Of all of these, I feel like I've dealt with that more than some of the others. But we're not done. We've got a few more to go.
And actually, just one last thing about Party Animal. There's a place that we played a couple of times that is pretty well known in town. They have cover bands quite often, and a lot of people go there for that. And we've had a couple of fun nights there. But the last time we played there, I looked down at my feet and I realized I had 4 beers lined up, because the waitresses were just bringing them to me, just stacking them up for me. Like, they were all lined up, and I was slowly making my way down them, but I was not gaining ground. It's just a note of how normalized and how, like, of course there's a rock band playing here. They're going to drink hard. Let's keep them lubricated. Like that sort of attitude. I find that in a lot of venues, and there is a happy medium to hit about that. If, the advice would be either stay away entirely or keep it under control such that you can continue to perform. But it's interesting that I've and that's not the only place I've found that they really were, hey, get you another one. Like, they're really eager to to keep supplying us. I don't know if other bands are setting that expectation for them or what that's about.
Yeah, I've had interesting situations because I've been trying to be more intentional about consuming while performing or avoiding it. What I've been doing is I've been bringing drinks. Particularly, it's these Sparkling Death Tall Boys.
Yep.
And I've actually had people call me out for bringing stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, this is a thing that they don't offer. And, it keeps me from passing out on stage from dehydration. So they're kind of a necessary part of the show. But like, I can't put Sparkling Liquid Death on like a rider because they're not available everywhere all the time. So I'll continue to bring them.
There you go.
All right. Moving along. Now, this is a particular type of musician that I feel like I spend most of my time talking about, especially on like other platforms.
These guys have been a topic for us. Yeah.
Well, and it's something that I think it's relatable. I feel like lots of people have experienced this, been this person, maybe grew out of it. But this kind of musician is what we're dubbing the artiste. So a person who is kind of operating in the working musician world, behaving like a recording artist does.
Yeah.
So this is a beast of many forms. This could be something like, I'm only going to play this kind of music because only this kind of music moves me, or I'm not playing direct because my sound is these things. And if I'm there, then this is what I've got to use. Just a rigid kind of thought process, personality type.
The giveaway is that they feel like some genre or style or performance mode is beneath them.
Yeah.
One thing you'll hear people we're putting in this category say is no good music was written after 1987.
Right. Amongst other loud, wrong, ignorant things.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's all based on like my standards are the right ones and
well, they're the benchmark. So anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you disagree with me, you're wrong, obviously, because I'm, at the top of all of this. Yeah.
And I feel like this one is also very common, and it's kind of a line in the sand. I feel like the people who kind of figure it out will typically go further in their careers because they're willing to make compromises on certain things. Because the way that I differentiate these kinds of players is there are people who want to play the guitar and pay their bills. They are the person who's like, I want to work. I can put myself aside and just do this for the paycheck and the, respect of the gig. The artiste isn't going to do that. They're going to try and make their way. It's got to be their way. And what typically ends up happening is they either hit enough roadblocks that they reconsider, or they quit. And that's kind of the last you hear of them. There's not an in-between. Like, can you be a sideman and also an artist? Yes. But those people typically compartmentalize those processes in order to pay the rent.
Yeah. I mean, the side effect of this, of course, is that they don't get out of their own lane enough to find new things that might be successful for them.
Yep.
They don't listen to, I mean, I put the SiriusXM Hits 1 channel on my favorites list because I'm just going to dip into that every now and then, just hear what's coming, and I've heard some cool stuff on there. Some of it I'll probably try out, and I'll watch it happen on the charts and see if that thing that radio station's out, the shtick on that station is that they're out ahead of the charts. It's like what's emerging. Right. So it's good to be aware of that as I'm looking at the chart, like, oh yeah, that was that tune that I thought was cool, and look at it bumping up. I better get my hands around that one.
Yeah.
But if you are stuck in a genre, stuck in an era, stuck in a decade, you have no interest in that, and it has commercial impacts. I right now am tearing rooms down with "Take Me to Church," right, which is a song that is not of my era, not of my wheelhouse. It's shoutier than I usually sing, but I can stop a room cold and get everyone's attention with it. And wouldn't have happened if I had blinders on about what I think is the right kind of music that's good.
It's true. I relate to this because this was me in my 20s, up to a certain point where it was like, well, if I want to play guitar for money, I'm gonna have to play these songs.
Yeah.
And the contrast becomes very clear, and it's typically that moment of clarity is very, very obvious. You're like, oh, it's either this or this. And once you kind of reconcile that, you're off to the races.
Yeah.
And then, you've got almost 300 episodes to catch up on. So.
Exactly.
Okay, so the last one, before we go any further, this was not in any particular order. This was just the way that we kind of put them up in the list.
And this one specifically is from an experience I had. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've probably all dealt with a version of this kind of musician, but we've dubbed this last one the Mercenary.
Yeah.
So they are the definition of a hired gun. They don't have a band. They're kind of pirates. They're hopping between groups. Not necessarily a bad thing. And if those guys have a particular set of chops and a competency, they can do that kind of thing. They can play all this different material any night of the week. And that's a pretty good talent to have.
Yeah. The issue is the utter lack of skin in the game.
Yep.
Right. The utter lack of care about, this gig's going to be over with in 3 hours. And so I'm showing up right now like it's over with in 3 hours. And the particular instance that, I contribute to the list of musicians not to be was a guy I don't call anymore because twice now I've called him to sub and he has accepted the gig and we booked him and then later called back to say he got a better offer and he was canceling me.
So to me, that's a totally different issue.
Okay.
Like, because the person without the band who can do the gig, he's not the problem.
No.
He's the kind of guy or she's the kind of gal who hates these kinds of guys because it makes the rest of them look bad. Right. So to me, the big issue with the Mercenary is that, there's no skin in the game. It's not necessarily that they're going to do a bad job, but it's like you said, it was like, I don't even care enough about you or this project for my word to mean anything.
Right.
Because ultimately my word means nothing.
Right.
I'm 100% always going to take the next best thing.
Yeah. And being booked doesn't mean I'm booked. Being booked means like it's penciled in, but I'm negotiable.
Yeah. But, there's one thing if like, here's your Mercenary example, that person can't play in your band because they're always playing with somebody else and you get them on the gig and they do a good job. That's one kind of guy. It's the one that's like, yeah, I'll do this. Wait, no, I'm not doing this. That's where the line is crossed. Right. But again, that's a reputation thing. You said this person did this to me twice, which is, shame on 100%. You. Fool me once.
100%. Yeah.
We can't get fooled again.
Yeah. That is a thing with me. I have things that I say are deal breakers and then I let them happen twice. And I think I like that I do that. I want to give people benefit of the doubt. I did that with a venue that had trouble paying me twice and no more. I'm not talking to them anymore. And in my professional job, where I've had people reporting to me who are underperforming, I often, when I finally do have to let them go, I think like, God, I could have done this 6 months ago. Would have saved me 6 months of agony. But I kind of like that I'm not the guy who's going to just cut you loose the first time something doesn't seem to work, So I don't know. I'm conflicted about that, but yes, in this case, the second time I was like, yeah, he's got big chops, but also a little bit of the talent kind of gets by on his ears and not his learning. But
and for every one of this particular kind of musician, there's little permutations and just totally. Personality stuff. Like you could be none of these people and still be miserable to be around.
That's very true.
And that's kind of more to do with your personality, who you are as a human.
Right.
So this is by no means comprehensive, but it was a fun exercise, and maybe let's just say a moment of self-reflection.
Yeah, because I definitely hear yourself in any of these. Think about that. Or if you suspect that others might think this about you, whether you think it about yourself or not, right? That's the moment to really think.
It's one of those leadership books. The question was, what does it feel like to be on the other side of me? That's kind of where that is.
There you go.
But less cringy. So
hopefully.
There you have it, folks. The 5 types of musicians to avoid and also avoid being.
Yep.
Can you think of any other bad types of musicians that you've run into in your experience? Leave them in the comments. Send us a note, coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. We want to hear about it. Any parting words?
Just don't be that guy.
Don't be that musician. Just remember that.
Indeed.
Okay, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's good to be back. I'm still trying to get my podcast feed under me after not having to do it for, a full week. But I feel like we came in strong. We came out swinging, ready to take on the rest of
knock the rust off your trumpet here.
Oh God. Thank you for somehow digging me out of a hole by putting me in another one. Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. In Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
You've been listening to the Cover Band Confidential podcast for the week of July 14th, 2023.